Hello, everybody. So I'm probably about to have my childhood memories ruined because we are going to look up 3 sinister theories that will change how you feel about your favorite childhood characters. So I believe the first one is going to be about the Rugrats, which I think I heard this theory before, but anyways, let's get into reading. Oh, fuck. What did I just do here? Damn it. Alright, let's turn off the camera. The Rugrats. Angelica is the only one who can talk to the babies because they are a figment of her imagination. She is spoiled, sad, and lonely because her mother is constantly working and has no time for her. So how did it come about that Angelica would have to imagine these babies? Tommy died soon after her childbirth, a fact reflected by Stu never leaving the basement, inventing toys that his son will never play with. Chucky died in the car crash along with his mom and also reflected in the actions of his father. The crash has made him a pathetic, nervous wreck most of the time. Most interesting is Phil and Lil. There never were any twins, and they were just one baby. However, this baby was still born, and Angelica never knew the sex of the stillborn, so she invented twins of different genders. In the Haunted Mansion at Disney theme parks, riders commit suicide during the course of the ride and became ghosts. At the beginning of the ride, the ghost host, the narrator, says that the only way to escape the mansion is to die, and he shows that he hanged himself. Near the end of the ride, there is a moment with the ride vehicle and it turns around back. What? Nope. Whatever. Turns around backwards and you go off a balcony, which according to this theory represents you jumping to your death. Before this part of the ride, the ghosts are all trying to scare you, but afterwards they sing excitedly and invite you to party with them. The only human character in the ride, a groundskeeper, appears after the balcony drop. He faces toward the riders and seems terrified of you. The original Scooby-Doo series is set after a horrible economic depression. Everything is abandoned, falling apart, and all of the villains are people who would normally be really respected. Professors, museum curators, celebrities who have fallen into hard times just like everyone else. How many times have the game helped someone not to go out of business? SpongeBob SquarePants is commonly about nuclear testing. The existence of SpongeBob and his strange friends is the result of radiation from nuclear arms testing that was performed on the Bikini Atoll in the late 40s and early 50s. Since they lived under the atoll, the town is known as Bikini Bottom. The Doc in Back to the Future is ready to kill himself and Marty in that parking lot during the first time travel scene. Not only has he never tested the time machine, but he claims that many of his inventions have been failures. So during the moment when he is about to find out if his life's work was a huge success or a complete waste, he not only drives a DeLorean towards himself, but grabs onto Mary when he tries to run away. If that first-time travel test was a failure, they both would have been killed, which is exactly what Doc wanted, and had the experiment been a failure. Garfield is actually dying of starvation, and just imagining John and Odie. There was a reference to this in Halloween-themed comic. Garfield woke up in the condemned and abandoned house. He calls out for Odie and John, but there is no answer. He then wills the illusion back on himself and continues his illusions about his family. And Pinky and the Brain is no genius. Pinky and the Brain one is a genius and the other is insane. Brain constantly plans to take over the world, suggesting he is insane, but Pinky often finds ways to ruin these plans, so who is the genius? Avatar is a message about a computer network. The planet Pandora functions as a giant and incredibly intelligent neural network, and essentially rewires Jake Sully's mind to protect one of its primary networking hubs. Right before he connects to the Tree of Knowledge, or whatever it was called, he's still talking like a Marine. Then bam, he connects to the planet and suddenly everything's scarred. He's in love as E.T.E. Katera. J.K. Rowling is actually read a skier who was exiled from the magic world for reporting lies. She is so angry about being exiled that she decides to write books revealing the entry of the magic world to the Muggle world. To her dismay, the Muggle world believes her stories to be fiction, but she becomes rich and famous anyway. Inspector Gadget is actually the second Inspector built as a completely robotic replacement after the first was lost in action. Upon return, he becomes Dr. Claw. He was loaded with his old memories, and nobody would have been the wiser except the original Inspector Gadget didn't actually die. Upon returning from whatever disaster caused his bosses to give up on him as KIA and now horribly disfigured, he discovers his replacement living his life, even with his dog, and raising his niece. The original Inspector snaps and vows to devote the rest of his life to the destruction of an ungodly replacement. He disavows everything he once knew and loved. Ed, and Eddie's entire cast of kids are all dead and living in a purgatory of an internal childhood cycle. That's creepy. There's a complete lack of any adult agents in the purgatory. There are a number of explanations for their death, ranging from an explosion due in a gas leak in the neighborhood to apocalypse, one such as nuclear explosion or the spread of a deadly disease that killed most of the Middle America. Another theory suggests that the kids in the cul-de-sac are dead children from the neighborhood, each from different times. Johnny and Ralph are from the 40s, Kevin is from the 90s, Naz is from the 60s, Jimmy's from the zeros, and so on. The Smurfs are a valid parable about white supremacy. All the Smurfs wear white hats that resemble KKK hoods, except for the Grand Wizard of the Smurfs, Papa Smurf, who wears a red hood. They live in a perfect harmony, but are constantly under threat from the evil, big-nosed Jew Gargamel, who wants to use them for his own twisted enrichment. The Rebecca Black song Friday is about the JFK assassination. The driver for the car he was assassinated, his name was Samuel Kinkin. Kinkin in front of the seat and in the back seat. The assassination occurred on a Friday, and when he was shot, the Secret Service yelled at Jackie Kennedy to get down and got to get down on Friday. Parts about the Cold War and the spread of communism are referenced. Everybody's Russian, and to top it all off, in a hotel that morning, JFK declined the breakfast of sausage, eggs, and toast for a bowl of bran flakes instead, and got to have my bowl. I got to have cereal. And also the following Monday, JFK was supposed to sign a bill into law requiring all public schools to provide bus transportation for their students. Got to catch my bus. The Jetsons and the Flintstones are two portions of the same society. The people living in Bedrock are actually members of a far future. One may say post-human society that have rejected the day-to-day electronic assistance to live like their long-dead ancestors did, or at least what they think they lived like. History has lost bit in translation. This explains the talking animals. They're just genetic creations. It's been so long since any actual animal lived, and that didn't have human communication bred written into it, that the pharaohs don't realize how silly it is to be talking with creatures that didn't even exist alongside early humans. The passengers aboard Gilligan's SS Milnow were never stranded, but rather died at sea. The island is limbo, and the adventurers had by the crew are a series of trials to determine their redemption of damnation. The crew themselves were generally good people and undeserving of eternal punishment, yet they revealed in sin and are unworthy to enter heaven, thus their banishment to limbo. What about Gilligan? All that can be said about Gilligan is no matter how the crew distracted him or how actively they sought to keep him from interfering with whatever plan of escape they had, imagine he somehow found a way to keep the crew trapped on the island. This is because they never earned redemption. Twilight is a tragedy rather than a romance. It's a little perverted there. As Bella gets more entangled with Edward, she becomes becomes less and less independent, more and more selfish. She is accepting of his abusive behavior, stalking her on trips with her friends, removing parts from her car so that she can't go and see Jacob, creeping into her window at night, emotional manipulation to the point that when he completely abandons her, walking out on trust and commitment they've built together, and in spite of having vowed to remain with her no matter what, she is willing to take him back. Edward is clearly entirely morally bankrupt. Charlie Brown is dying of cancer. My personal explanation for why Charlie Brown in Peanuts is bald is he's dying of cancer and dreaming up of everything, and the strip of nothing ever works out for him, and his life is a disaster, but he's simply channeling his sadness into dreams. Disney's Aladdin takes place in the future. In one scene, Genie calls Al's clothes so 3rd century. Genie was trapped from 10,000 years, so there is no way he could know of the fashion trends which never happened whilst he was in the lamp, which means that the latest Genie could have been trapped in the lamp during the 3rd century. If he spent 10,000 years in there, it is then at least the year of 10,300 AD when he gets out. A post-apocalyptic world where only Arabic and some Greek culture survived. It has been so long that the name Arabica has been corrupted into Agrabah. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a movie about gentrification and segregation. The Toons are black people living in the age of Jim Crow. They are trying to evict Toons and build on the land of Toontown, much like gentrification pushes poor people out of their neighborhoods. Many of the Toons are performers, which is a nod minstrel culture and the exploration of blacks as novelties for entertainment. Jessica Rabbit is a Toon that looks more like a human. She is a symbol for women of mixed racial heritage and a way that white men frequently felt confused about their desire for them. She's also a symbol of Miss Nani due to her marriage to an extremely Toonish Toon. You've seen conspiracy theories from cartoons. Wow, that was a lot.